In this video, I'm going to solve the last Business Intelligence Fundamentals quiz. It's for educational purposes, of course. So at some points, I might ask you to do something like pausing the video and thinking about something. If you are interested in learning, then you take my suggestions and you do what I ask. If you're not interested in learning, you just continue watching the video and then the learning effect is smaller. It's completely your choice. The first thing you get is the file, the source file, right? So it's always a good habit to have a peek in the source file. So see what's in it and already anticipating to the data model, see what maybe the different sheets have in common, if they have something in common. Because that's what we know, what we have to connect in the data model. So what do we see in the first sheet? We see a date. We see the name of the hotels, right? Parking, airport comfort, etc. We see the capacity of rooms, so how many guests fit into a hotel maximum. How many rooms were actually occupied. What the costs are per room. So if you look at company data, the data is always from the perspective of the company. So the cost per room means how much does a room cost for the hotel in terms of cleaning, capex, staff, etc. And the last column is the sales price per room. So that's the price that's charged to guests. All right, let's have a look on the second sheet. Here we see continents, we see countries, we see cities. That already sounds like a hierarchy. And we see hotel name. Hotel name. Where have I seen that before? That sounds familiar, right? It's over here, right? That's where we've seen the hotel name too. In the last sheet, we see a lot of dates in the first column. The title is called date. And then we see different ways of describing that date. We see the year number, month, day number, and we see also the month name and the day name. So that's a typical calendar. The sheet is also called a calendar. In most calendars, the date title will be date. So that's a good trick to look for the date. And then automatically the name of the table will appear if you start writing date. Where have we seen date before? I think it was in the first sheet. Yes, in the first sheet. All right, that's good. Now let's get started. We have to import this in PowerPivot. First of all, often PowerPivot doesn't appear, especially if you have to do the exam on a school computer. Then it will look like this. So I will uncheck PowerPivot now. Alright, so we want to import in PowerPivot. Where is PowerPivot? I don't see it. It's gone. Let's call PowerPivot. So if it's not there, you just write it in the search screen, in the search field, PowerPivot. And then you see this green icon, which I hope you recognize. And you click on it. And then you do enable. And then PowerPivot appears. Okay. A mistake that happens to some of you, which I've seen during the quiz, is that you try to import the file that has to be imported within that same file itself. And so PowerPivot feeds on external data. You feed on food, not on yourself. So importing a source file within itself is like you feeding on yourself. It's like you eating your hand. That's very wrong. I hope you know that, and a bit weird too. So don't, if you open the source file, don't go to PowerPivot and try to import it. I'm going to try it anyway, because that won't work. I will prove it won't work. So this is the file we're currently in. Okay, next. Oh, there's the mistake. There's the error. Okay, I hope that message is clear. So what do we have to do then? Just close the source file and you open a new file, an empty Excel sheet. Here's my empty Excel sheet. Let's go to PowerPivot and import it. So we click on Manage. and then files from other sources. And then we look for the source file. This is the source file. Have a look, if you pause the video, which mistake am I about to commit? Think about it. We'll see it later on. Here we choose the tables that we want to import. I want to import them all. If you named a certain table, if you gave a name to a certain table, it will also appear here. And so you will see both the name of the sheet and the name of the table, but you only select one of those two, or maybe only the name of the table. All right, let's finish. It's importing now. My Excel file is eating the source file. That all looks good. But now I see something that doesn't look good. I see F1, F2, F3, F4. That means I made a mistake while importing. I'm sure most of you noticed I forgot to select the use first row as headers. And so that's the problem. Okay, so let's do this again. We select the right file. Now it's selected, use first row as headers. We're importing everything. Yeah, okay. And now we see the titles look way better. If I look in calendar, I see date, year number. If I look in calendar here, I see these weird titles with F1, F2, F3, etc. So I'm just going to delete the tables that I imported in a wrong way. Delete. And I'm going to work with the correct tables. Okay, we recognize them because we already peeked into the source file. Let's see, we're going to start with building the relations. We also already have an idea about the relations. The first step, which I always do, is make the tables bigger so you can see all the fields at once, right? Now we have to connect the columns which they have in common. We already saw that there was a date in calendar and in the occupancy financial sheet. So we're going to connect these ones. You see, I just select the column title date and I drop it on the column title I want to connect it with. We also saw that there was something like a hotel name. This looks like hotel. If it becomes green here, I can drop it. There you go. Now my connections are fine. If you're not sure about something, for example, if you're not sure that hotel name is the same thing as hotel, you can still check in the data view. So for example, we go to geography. Here in hotel name, if you open this, you can see these names. And here, if we think it's in this, you can also see it's about the same data. All right, back to the diagram view, because we also have to create hierarchies. Let's start with the first one, the geography. So the hierarchies, here's the button of hierarchies. You see these tiny folders. If you click on it, a hierarchy appears. Let's call it geography. Yeah, geography. And then to create a hierarchy, it's pretty straightforward. So you drag whatever you want to include in the hierarchical order. So the highest hierarchy is continent. So we drop it on the hierarchy title. If it's blue, it means you can drop it. Then we pick country, and then country will appear below. Then we pick city, and then we pick hotel name. That's a very good looking hierarchy. I'm gonna create the other hierarchy that was asked for. So the date, how do you write this thing? Hierarchy. I hope my English teacher is not watching. What was the hierarchy order, we wanted the year. You have to be a bit precise for it to become blue. We wanted quarter. We wanted month. And then the date. Okay, we also have to calculate a column. So it was asked to calculate total sales. So to calculate a new column, we're going to add a column. You already see it indicated where we have to go. You select on the first row in the column to be added. And then you click on the formula bar and you start typing as if it were Excel. So what is total sales? Total sales is the price, the sales price, right? Times the rooms that are occupied. It looks a bit strange. Okay, now it is going to calculate it for the whole column. I don't know why it's so small. All right, but you see I calculated it once and it copied down for the whole table. We can give it a title if you double click on the title. So total sales. That's it. For now we're done in PowerPivot. So the dressing room is ready to come out. I think I haven't mentioned that story. So PowerPivot is like the dressing room of a fashion show or the dressing room of a football game. Just to use stereotypes. What happens in the dressing rooms? Models get dressed, they get ready, they choose their dresses, maybe some motivation talk, and in the football locker room, it's the same. It's very similar, right? People get dressed, they put their hair nice nowadays. There's the coach giving a tactical instructions and a speech. But people out there next to the catwalk or in the stadium, they don't see it. So in PowerPivot, it's the same thing. We're preparing our data, but if we open Excel, or if we look in Excel, there's nothing to see. That's because it's happening in the back in PowerPivot. It's the changing room of Excel, let's say. But we're almost ready to get our models or our football players out. So I'm gonna close PowerPivot. Okay, and here you see the stadium is completely empty. At first sight, it looks as if nothing has happened. But again, if you open PowerPivot, you see there are tables, you see there are relationships. Good. Here in PowerPivot, we're going to create a new measure. What was the measure? We wanted to create the measure called occupancy percentage. We want to know how much the percent of the capacity was occupied. The first option is to indicate in which table you want the measure to appear. Description, if you have spare time or if you're a bit confused about the measure name, if it's not clear enough, you can add a description. But we're not going to do that. So how do we calculate this? It was indicated, so we write average. I already see the formula I like, so the long and inefficient way is to double click on this, right? The fast and efficient way is if you see it, you can go up and down with your arrows. You hit tab. So you know by now, the more you use the keyboard, the more time you win. So try to use the keyboard as much as you can and avoid using your mouse. Good, so we're gonna take the average of the rooms. I don't remember what it was, what the exact name was. All right, it was rooms occupied, now I remember. So I see it here, I scroll to it with the arrows on my keyboard. I selected it. Then I'm doing this times the average of the room capacity. There it is, room capacity. All right, I'm going to close the parentheses. Now stop the video for a while and have a look which mistake I made. I mean it, stop the video. I'm serious. I'm challenging you to find the mistake in this formula. Okay, I hope you found it, but here I started the average formula, and the average formula of the occupied rooms ends here. So that's where I have to close it. You see, when I added the closing parentheses, the opening parentheses also became bold. So what is a red flag? Is that you don't have a closing parentheses. That was the mistake that was made most often during the quiz, and that's during the classes too. So be very concentrated, be very aware of to what your formula refers, and when you have to close the parentheses. Let's see if Excel is happy with my formula. So I check the formula, it says no errors. Okay, good. If Excel is happy, I'm happy. All right, now our models are ready to roll, our players are ready to play, so we're gonna start the game, we're gonna start the show. So we go to Insert, Pivot Table, and you select the green icon. If the icon is not there, you will still be able to see Data Model. So if we work with PowerPivot, always select Data Model. Good. We've selected, where do we want it? Over there in the corner, that's fine for me. And now we see our tables, we see them here, and we can start building. So we only see geography here because that's the hierarchy that we created. There are might be some other fields. In this case, by coincidence, all the fields are within geography, but maybe you might need another field, another column of that table. Then you have to open the more fields. All right. What can also appear is that you find yourself here in active. Of course, now there's nothing active, so you need to select all. That also is a problem in slicers or in the timelines. So be very much aware. If you panic, if you cannot find the field you're looking for, make sure you find yourself in all. Good. I'm just gonna drag the geography over here. If I wouldn't drag it, I notice some of you have the habit of selecting it. This time it also ends up in rows, but sometimes it ends up in values. And Excel starts counting continents. So it's a good habit to drag it where you want it. All right. Good. We have the continents. Now we need also the occupied rooms. The rooms occupied. Okay, I'm dragging it and I'm dropping it here. We don't want the. So what we see now, the pivot table is automatically summing all the rooms of all the days, but we want the average. So you select on the arrow, you go to field settings, and then you see it's on sum. You select average, and now we can see the average. To make the format stick, you select the whole column, including the title, very important, and then right click, value field settings again, number format, and then we want it to be a number, no decimals. Using the 1000 separator is always a good thing, just in case. All right, now it looks good. I'm also taking advantage of this moment to show you another option in Excel. Let's say if we don't want to show this as numbers but as percentages, then you go again to field settings and you click on the second tab, show value as, and here you have the possibility to show the values, for example, as percentages of column total. So the grand total of 61, which you see now, will be the 100%, and the others will be the percentages of that. So, but that's not the assignment here. We just want to see them as numbers, as the numbers they are. Good. We need also a filter, and it was asked to filter by month. Let's see where the calendar is. Okay, I only see date hierarchy here, but we need the months. So I'm gonna open this more fields. We can use the month number, or maybe if we have a month name. There you go. That's more transparent. You saw how or maybe it was too fast. I select month name, I drop it in filters. Here we can open it and then select multiple items, and we just select September. Now you see it's alphabetically ordered. Okay. The filter of September, that looks good. Now we're gonna insert a slicer. Let's see. I'm going to insert a slicer. There you go. Oh, this looks weird. Pause for a moment and look what I've done wrong. What was my mistake? I hope you know. All right. If you want to create a slicer that filters your table, your pivot table, you have to select a cell in the pivot table. Otherwise, Excel doesn't know you're making a slicer that refers to that table. All right. So I selected a cell. I go again to slicer. Okay, now I can select what I want. We wanted to select a slicer based on continent. Here again, sometimes you're looking for a slicer. If it's not an active, it's going to be an all, right? So in case of panic, check the all tab. Good. More fields. I pick continent. There you go. Now we have a nice slicer. You see, if you select the continents, it will change. So it's connected. We want to see Africa, Asia, and LATAM. You can select multiple items by holding control. So I've selected LATAM. I'm holding control now. Asia and Africa. There you go. If you have multiple pivot tables and you only want to have one slicer which connects to the multiple tables, if you select the slicer, you will see the slicer tab up there, and then you click on report connections. You will see all the tables, all the pivot tables here, and then you just select all the pivot tables to which you want to connect the slicer. Right here we only have one, but that's another trick. What's the other thing I wanted to mention about slicers? This is a traditional slicer. There's also something called a timeline. You see it here in filters. A slicer is just a fancy filter which is easy to use for everybody, including people who don't know Excel. Because for a filter, to use a filter, you have to know how to use it, how it works. So if you select the timeline, you need to select the date, right? Because it's related to time, of course. A mistake would be to select the date here in occupancy financial. So for the timeline, you need to select the date in the calendar. Remember that. You need the date in the calendar table, not the date in the other table, because there's often gonna be a date in the other table. Okay, let's see how this looks. So this is what a timeline looks, very intuitive. You can select a month and then make the selection bigger or smaller, or change it. Very intuitive. Okay, I'm getting distracted. Let's get back to the quiz. There was one measure that we had to add. So we go back to PowerPivot and let's write a new measure. We want it in occupancy financials, so that's fine already. We want the room quantity of last month. So I'm gonna write M-1. If you want to write measures that are related to time, for example, the previous month, which we're going to use now, or year to date, No, sorry, year to date has a different formula. But for previous month and parallel periods, so the same period in the future or in the past, you need to start with calculate. There's my calculate. What does calculate do? It has two parts. So the first part is the expression. That's where you calculate whatever you want to see. And the second part is a filter. And in that filter, you're going to explain Excel which time you want to see in the measure. So we want to see the quantity of rooms, right? Of rooms occupied. Rooms occupied. There you go. Now we go to the filter. And I remember it's something with previous, so I start writing. There you go, previous month. And in previous month, the only thing we need to select is the date. So we start writing date. There's my date. Okay. Now there are two mistakes. Pause the video, analyze my formula, and check which mistakes I made. Go ahead, don't be lazy. I mean it. Okay, the first mistake is I told you here in the expression part, we need to tell Excel what we want to see. I told Excel I want to see rooms occupied, but that doesn't say anything because Excel doesn't know whether I want to count the rooms occupied, whether I want to see the average of the room, whether I want to see the sum. And so here, if you're unless you're referring to a measure that's already summing or taking the average, or that's already calculated, you have to express what calculation you want Excel to do with this data. In this case, we want the average of the rooms occupied. We want the average of this, so we need to close the parentheses here when the average is done, where it stops. Yeah, okay, I hope you understand what I mean. Then there is another problem because there was another closing parentheses missing. So the trick I always use is if you use calculate, your formula is going to end with two closing parentheses. All right, let's check if Excel agrees with my formula. Oh, that was just luck. Let's push OK, and then we see the numbers. I'm going to make it pretty again. So right click, including the title I've selected. Value field settings, we want to change the number format without decimals. The 1000 separators are not relevant, but it's a force of habit. Okay, there's my measure. Now we want to include a power chart. So we select any cell of the power of the pivot chart. I said a power chart, I mean a pivot chart. So we go to insert and then pivot chart, and then Excel is going to show me automatically a suggested pivot chart. I'm pretty happy with this one. And then we had to change the color from blue to green. So you see if I select one of the blue columns, they get selected all. We do right click. I see here the fill. So if I click on this, it becomes green already. All right, this was the quiz. There was one more thing I wanted to show you. You know, I have the feeling I'm showing off, so I'm just gonna continue on my showing off. We go to PowerPivot because you know, this is a small simple table which is very easy to interpret. Very often tables are big and complex, and the people you present them to have very little time, and just like everybody else, their brain is lazy. So the more you can make a table speak, the better. That's why there are KPIs in PowerPivot. So again, you select one of the cells of in the pivot table. You go to new KPI, and then you can make a KPI of all the measures you created. So in order to make a KPI of something, you first need to create it as a measure. These are the two measures we created. Let's create a measure for the last month's room occupancy. We select absolute value, and that's where you type the goal, the target. So let's type 80, and then you see the target line is going to be 80. I want to show you that if the last month's occupancy was above 76, it has to be green. We want to see a green light. If it's between 76 and 50, it has to be yellow. And if it's under 50, it's going to be red. You already see in the table, we're going to have a green light for Asia, a yellow light for Africa, and a red light for Latin America. No offense, guys. Here you can choose how the KPIs indicators look. Let's use a simple traffic light. We do OK, and now we see something that does not look like a KPI. All right, that's something maybe Excel can improve in the future. Nobody's perfect, even Excel. So how do we solve it? You look for the KPI, the red light. You've seen it here. You open it, and then you unclick status, and you select it again, and then we will see the lights. We unclicked it, and then we select it again. So here are our KPIs. It's a bit strange why this did not work. I will figure it out myself later on. So this is where the showing off stops. What you noticed is that the pivot chart changed. You see there's a very small column here. That's because everything you do in the pivot table reflects in the pivot chart. So if I would expand the levels here, let's say expand the entire field, so we're gonna see all the levels. That also happens in the pivot chart. The other thing I didn't show you was the drilling up and down, because why do we make the hierarchies? I will show you why. Let's say you're in a management meeting and your boss says, oh, what's wrong with LATAM? Let's have a look in LATAM. Let's drill down on LATAM. So you select LATAM. You say, okay, I'm gonna drill down. And now we see what's in LATAM. So there's Colombia, there's El Salvador, and notice how your pivot chart also changes along with your drilling. Where are we located in Colombia? Oh, I forgot, I don't know by heart, but luckily I'm able to drill down because I made a hierarchy. Bogota, okay, that's Bogota. This is what Bogota looks like. What hotel do we have in Bogota? Let's drill down. Okay, it's called Airport Comfort. And the same way you drill down, you can also drill up, right? And you're back on the top hierarchy. Okay, I hope this video is useful for your learning process. Don't hesitate to contact your teachers or your fellow students in case of any questions. Bye bye.